I'm going to try and tilt a bit so that you can Dutch it. I have to move the lav to prevent scratching. That makes sense because it's here. 1 second. Again, this isn't about recreating the script. It's about making it feel like an interview, so I'm okay.
Exactly. It just gives you a starting point to bounce off.
All right. Now, I remember exactly the sentence I left off on. You can just patch this together, but I don't want to have to reintroduce the idea. Don't make me say this again.
Go ahead.
All right. I have a fable to tell. It's about how something that's false, that's an image, that's an abstraction, that's a mirage, becomes real. Because enough people believe it's real, falsely. Log footage encoding, short for logarithmic footage encoding, is a technical workaround. It's a way to get around the fact that light, as it exists in reality, operates in a linear fashion. Linear light is incredibly difficult to encode. It is incredibly inefficient. You waste half your data on just like the bright parts of those windows. And so logarithmic color encoding essentially remaps the tonal values of the image in a way that does two things. First, it shifts the tonal range in a manner that makes it much easier to encode digitally. It adds data to the areas that are neglected when encoding in linear light, those being mostly the shadows, and it takes away redundant data from the highlights. To properly display this on any kind of display medium, a monitor, a phone, a projector, etc., we have to reverse that logarithmic operation, use what's called an electronic optical transfer function, an EOTF, conform it to what that display is expecting. And so it looks like we would expect. It looks like me right now. It looks hopefully good, aside from the flop sweat. However, this has another implication. Suddenly, this image you're seeing now is a lot less flexible. We're tossing away data left and right. We are burning in a lot of decisions. So by retaining image during editing in that log state, we retain maximum flexibility. It has one other effect though, and that is it makes footage look really washed out and kind of, in this interviewee's opinion, not great, crappy, effed up. You have fallen into the oldest trap in 21st century color encoding. The fog of log. Log footage has wrecked cinema. Actually, that's totally untrue. It hasn't, but enough people believe it has an impact on cinema that it has made an impact.
That's some deep shit.
I know, right? So what happens in the late 2000s and early 2010s? One by one, camera manufacturers begin offering log profiles on various, often consumer-independent focused cameras. And great, right? We've ushered in the era of modern digital cinematography. We no longer have clipped highlights. We're great. Not really. Misunderstanding, because two things happen. One, on a conscious level, cinematographers, directors, producers, even some colorists start to fall under the misapprehension that this logarithmic way of encoding is some sort of natural, authentic state of the footage, that any deviation from this is an artistic judgment. There might be some truth there in the sense that there is no fixed state to digital footage, but this is a complete misunderstanding of the idea of log footage. It was never intended to be looked at in this state. It is aesthetically arbitrary. Two, on an unconscious level, even if these aforementioned cinematographers, directors, colorists know that, a phenomenon occurs when you become acclimatized to the way anything looks. In the same way that if you step outside, your eyes adjust to the bright sunlight, or if you start watching something with a blue filter over your eyes will eventually filter that out and everything will look natural. Our eyes and our brain, our cognition of color is tremendously elastic. Even if the viewer, the observer, is aware of this, this log low contrast footage will eventually seem more natural. Set this the log now, so you're looking at me without that color correction. After 100 hours of editing me looking like this, if you do this starts to look pretty extreme, doesn't it?
You can't believe your eyes.
You can't believe your eyes. You can't believe your brain.
So this is theoretical.
This isn't theoretical. I've been a colorist for 10 years. I lived this. Endless stories of having to ruin perfectly good grades. Suddenly, you had these films with conspicuously low contrast, flat images. And so this intermediate encoding state that was never supposed to have any impact suddenly has a tremendous impact upon a generation of films and filmmakers. Myth has become the reality. The root of this is that digital images have no fixed, concrete state. They are inherently interpretations of a set of completely abstract censored data, right? It isn't like film where it's a physical thing you affect in the silver highlight. No. These are ones and zeros that are interpreted. If we encode this image in log encoding or linear or like hybrid log gamma and dump it on this Rec 709 display that we're dumping it onto, those are as aesthetically relevant as looking at a screenshot of a notepad document of this video file that we're showing you right now. The beauty of digital images is that you are essentially free to do almost whatever you want with it. With that freedom comes a responsibility to understand the terms you're operating on. If you're trying to say, I want an untouched image, well, let me tell you, buddy, there's no such thing. There's this wonderful word, reification. Now, what reification means is the transition of something from an abstract state to a concrete state, ineffable to the real. Enough people think that log encoding has aesthetic implications, even though, as we have comprehensively laid out, it doesn't. It now does because of this misunderstanding. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. A cautionary tale.